leader in the industry, providing LED lighting, return pumps, wave makers, and more since 2005. And we have Patrick here too. Nobody wrote me anything about Patrick, so sorry, Patrick. Patrick's here just to make Jay look good, I guess. Oh, okay. That's it. There you go. The man behind the whole thing. So I will get off stage now that I look like an idiot. So take it away, guys.
Well, never mind. Wrong presentation here. All right, so Mobius. We have been working on this for probably 10 years, or at least this has been the vision of our company, is to create a interactive equipment group of smart equipment items. And I think Pat can lead us off here with a little bit about what Mobius is and what Mobius is not.
So, controller for aquariums is something that we've dreamt of for a long time. When we started making products for EcoTech Marine, we started with a Waterbox reactor, but that product really didn't go anywhere. We ended up producing a idea for an integrated dosing pump Waterbox reactor, which again didn't go anywhere. And eventually we designed a pump that you guys may have heard of. It's called the Vortec, which ended up selling and allowing us to really start our company. Now, back in 2005, when we really started to do this, we had the idea of, okay, yeah, we would love to build a total control system and make integrated tanks. But the reality of that process is very difficult. It's not something that is easily produced. And the general architecture of the tank and the control system itself has changed over the years, and its thought process. So with Mobius, we've basically redesigned and rethought how the devices themselves are controlled within the system. Traditional controllers are a top-down method, right? You've got a single box or controller that you plug in a bunch of devices into that controller or probes, and that controller is the conductor, and it's telling all the other devices what to do, when to turn on, when to turn off, and whether it's a wired connection or a wireless connection, it's all happening through that single point of microcontroller or what have you. Mobius, in its conception, turns that upside down. And it's kind of called a mesh network. It's something that's traditionally done in various industries, but what this gives us the opportunity to do is to create a system that doesn't have a single point of failure. It doesn't have a box that you plug everything into. Now, over the years, for us to get to this idea, we've had to iterate through a number of different control system and devices. One being, if you've ever used a Reef link, you know that the Reef link is controlling all of your Radions, Vortex, Vectras through one RF module that connects to Wi-Fi or Ethernet. Now with Mobius, you can basically take that Reef link, throw it in the trash, because we're creating a system which allows you to connect to any one of your devices and allows the devices themselves to talk to each other. And it does that by creating smart enabled devices. Each device in and of itself is going to be able to store its programming schedule and be able to communicate with the other devices and remember different triggers and act accordingly, okay? So as an example, if you are running your Radions over a tank and your tank suffers from a temperature spike, one thing that could happen, and one of our future products will be a wireless Bluetooth battery-powered temperature probe. And if that probe sends out a signal through the system, that signal is propagated through the system, and it tells your aquarium lights to dim or turn off because your tank's too hot. So overall, the system is designed to use the devices and control platform that you already own. Everybody's got one, right? It's right here in your pocket. So this is our interface, and then Mobius is the ethereal thing that allows you to connect these to your EcoTech devices. And eventually, products outside of just our own brand or brands.
So, for some of you, you may be familiar with the Reef Link and also our current control platform, which at the time was quite revolutionary, but over the years, we've discovered what the limitations of a web-based control platform are, and having a hub that requires an internet connection to use program and connect with your devices. So one of the things that will be going away, obviously, is this Reef link and the EcoSmart Live connectivity, but it won't be forgotten. In the sense that obviously there will be, we'll continue to support the ESL platform, and we'll continue to operate all the equipment running EcoSmart Live firmware that's not upgraded. And so if you have a system or an aquarium that's already dependent on our current platform, obviously that will continue. And in some cases, you may or may not want to upgrade immediately. You may want to let the new platform, Mobius, progress a little bit, because initially there will be a lot of benefits as we roll out backwards compatibility for Mobius, but there will also be some limitations which we'll add back in later. So depending on how you're currently using our equipment in your aquariums, that's something which you may want to consider. What does Mobius look like? So this is, the main goal of our company has always been to facilitate reef keeping. Reef keeping and aquarium growing live coral is something that is, I'm sure everybody in this room is very familiar with, as a science, it's an art, it's a passion, it's a commitment. And you really have to be passionate and involved. Now, one of the things that equipment can do for you is it can't make you an instant reef hobbyist. I think everybody would agree with that. But what it can do is it can simplify your life as an aquarium keeper. And that's one of the things that we've always tried to do, is build equipment, design and build equipment that we use ourselves, because we're reef aquarists. And one of the things that we feel strongly about is that we're in this for the livestock. We're in this for the fish, we're in it for the coral, we're in it for the satisfaction of watching these organisms grow and thrive in our aquariums. We're in it for the aesthetic beauty of having just this amazing piece of nature in our home. What we're not in it for is a bunch of wires, our lights, our pumps. I mean, these are cool, but they're not what makes us aquarists. So one of the big things with Mobius is that it gives us the opportunity to take a step back, use everything that we've learned from the control platform, from EcoSmart Live, from our hobbyist community, from all the people who use our equipment, and try and distill that into what it is that you really want out of your aquarium control, and that is easiness to use and simplicity.
Now, one of the things that's different between EcoSmart Live and the Reef Link, and that's changing for Mobius, is the ability to have a local control. So when we decided to build an internet-connected device, we built the Reef Link like it was going to be an aquarium controller. And that really made it possible for people to have remote access to your aquarium to control vortex and radions. Even though just to control a vortex and radion, it was kind of overkill. There's really no reason why most people are going to be controlling their aquarium lights and reprogramming their schedules while they're on vacation, unless there's some sort of an emergency that's happened and you don't want to be dealing with it. So Mobius itself, right, is connecting through different types of Wi-Fi communications. Well, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got Bluetooth, and what that also enables you to do is to have a local connection. So while you're there with your tank, and if the internet goes down, you can still control your devices. If you've ever had a Reef Link and you see, I think it's a yellow and green parts of the circle, it means it's lost connection versus the blue circle. So that problem will never exist in the new architecture. You're connecting directly to one device, whichever one's the strongest signal, and then all of those devices are talking to the other devices. And this itself is creating this network which is also accessible off-site. Upon launch, we're only allowing the local connection to exist. But as we start to introduce the future and additional product lines, such as the power strip, the probes, and the float switches that are coming, it's going to enable you to have the remote access as well and to give you the data. You know, you want to know the chemical data, you want to know everything's running okay, and all of that's going to be very seamless with push to your devices for alerts or even programming various different automations through the Mobius app.
So, you know, I think the best way to show where Mobius is to actually show how it's used in action. So what we're going to watch next is a video of my tank back in the office where I'm running the most current version of Mobius. And again, there's a little bit of lag in terms of what is currently available on the App Store for anyone who has recently acquired one of our dosing pumps is only controlling dosing pumps. But we're a lot further along in the development, and we're basically at the stage where these things are going to roll out on an almost monthly basis. And what you'll see here is, if you watch closely, you'll see a lot of the equipment and everything, and we'll go into that in a minute as well, of what's already in there and some of the things that you can do with this as a system. So, switch this over. So this is a slightly younger version of me 3 days ago. Jay here. I'm going to give you a tour of the Mobius platform using the Mobius beta app. So some of the functionality you see may or may not be incorporated by the time you actually start using the app yourself. But this gives you a pretty good idea of what's coming. The tank I'm going to be using to demonstrate is my office tank. It's a Waterbox 130.4, and it's running various.
Oh, you got to close the PowerPoint, minimize the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. No,
No?
I don't think so.
Yes. Yeah, we got to stop the presentation.
Thank you for your patience. Mobius runs more smoothly than this, so. Did work a second ago.
There it is.
Pieces of EcoTech and aquaillumination equipment, which are Mobius compatible, at least with the beta. So what I have is an MP40. I have some Nero pumps in the back. It's lit by 4 XR15 Pros, Gen 4s. And then underneath, in the sump area, I have 4 Versas running my dosing, and then I have a single Versa which is running my auto top-off. In the back, I have 2 Vectors. One is feeding the CaribSea roller, and the other one is the return for my main tank. So what is Mobius? Mobius is the control platform under which all of this equipment is operating and communicating with each other. When we talk about Mobius, what you're going to be most familiar with is the application, which is the user interface, which controls all of it. When we open it up, once we've set up a tank, gone through any setup wizards, etc., the first thing we're going to be presented with is our dashboard. Now, there's some key elements on the dashboard, but we'll dive into the scenes, which is the first thing you see later. First, we're going to take a look at the equipment. All right, so let's get into lighting. On your home screen, down at the bottom, what you're going to see is a number of icons. The one on the furthest left is going to be your home icon. That's why it looks like a house. The second one, if you have dosing pumps, such as the Versas set up, that's where you're going to see a little icon that looks like the rotor on a Versa pump. Next to that is a sun, which I think is fairly self-explanatory as the lighting. To the right of that is little wavy lines. That's your flow. That's where your pumps are located, circulation and return. And then all to the right is your settings. If you click on the settings button, one of the cool features in here is the devices tab. That shows all of the devices which are currently connected to your account. It also shows whether there's updates and allows you to do other things like rename them. Okay, going back to the home screen. Once we're back on the home screen, now we're going to go to lighting. So we're going to click on that little sun. And when we click on that, what we're presented with is a dashboard specific to lighting. Right here, you can see if you have any of the toggle functions enabled, like lunar or acclimation up at the top. You can click on those to change those. Under that, you have an overview of your daily schedule. You can see it runs 24 hours, 12 a.m. to 24 p.m. It has a little orange marker which shows where you are in your day's schedule. The sun indicates where your schedule starts for the day, and then the moon is obviously night. Click on Edit, and you're presented with a view of your program. Now, for those of you who are familiar with our other apps, by tapping on a control point, you are presented with your sliders where you can adjust intensity and other things. Go back, you can select another control point, etc. While you're in that control point, you can adjust the lights and the colors will change accordingly. Once you're done with that, you can save. Also, there's an option to export. If you back out using the lighting tab, you will be presented again with the dashboard indicating your lighting schedule. Now from here, you can either back out again, which will take you back to the menu, or you can immediately skip to another equipment area. So in this case, we are going to go to flow. Now flow is presented slightly differently. In the circulation home screen, you can see all of the pumps which are currently connected to your system, either as return pumps or as circulation pumps. So you can see all the pumps here. You can also see at a glance what schedule they're running and also what percentage that they're currently running at and at what mode. Now, if we want to change one of those or adjust the programming, we simply click on it. In the case of this Vectra, it's not calibrated. It's actually suggesting that I do calibrate it, but as you can see, here is the program. The program shows that this is running in constant mode. Again, there's that orange marker which shows you where in the schedule you are. It is running at 100% in constant speed mode. If I wanted to put feed mode in there or some other period, I can adjust that accordingly. I can obviously have different output levels at different times through the course of the day. We go to a pump that has slightly more complex functionality, like an MP40. There you can see your schedule over the course of the day. And then when you click on edit, again, you're provided with this menu system. Here we have a lot of options, all of the different modes that a Vortec is capable of. To add one to your 24-hour schedule, simply drag it across. It's that easy. In each individual one, you have the options specific to that mode. For instance, in pulse mode, you can adjust the max speed and the time between pulses. Okay, so that is circulation and return pumps. So now we'll get to the last thing, which is the Versa, which is our dosing and auto top-off. Now there we're going to click on the icon again. Now we have our dashboard for dosing. And as you can see, this tank's currently set up. And what we have is fresh water, and then we have our 3 salts and 1 pump, which I've yet to actually connect to anything. Now, if we look in the cabinet, we can see the Versas are all connected here. We have the salt reservoir over here with my calcium alkalinity and magnesium in it, which are these 3 pumps right here. And then over here, we have my freshwater auto top-off. Now, to run it as an auto top-off, because there's no input devices for Mobius yet, it's actually connected to this hydrofill. And the pump is set in constant mode. So we're going to click on that one. Looking at our dosing dashboard, there's 4 pumps which are currently programmed, including the freshwater, the magnesium, alkalinity, and calcium. Calcium is currently set with no program. Now, one of the things you'll notice is that the freshwater pump is not powered on, and that's because it is set up to run in constant mode. Constant mode allows you to set a dosing volume, and then when the pump is powered on, it will run that volume continuously. Because it's for an ATO, I have it connected to a float switch. Unfortunately, because it's not powered on right now, I can't connect to that pump, but it is programmed, so when it's powered on, it will run. Over here, I have my salt pumps, so magnesium, alkalinity, calcium. If I click on calcium, which is not programmed, I can see there it is. I've set this before as calcium. There's my additive. Going back to the schedule, it's in manual, which means that I can program this as I see fit. And for that reason, I'm going to simply start calcium dosing and run it from 8 to 4 p.m. And I'm going to set a dosage of 30 ml. I'm going to enable the catch-up feature, which means that if for some reason the pump is powered off, within a 24-hour period, it will make up that dosing volume. And then I'm simply going to click Save. As you can see up here at the top, there's also auto and constant. Constant we just talked about. Auto in dosing will actually set the times for you, so you simply set the volumes of your salts, and then it will dose at the times most optimum for those particular additives. Okay, so clicking Save, Now we go back and the pump is programmed. We go back and you can see now calcium is programmed for 30 ml daily dosage. That quick, that simple. Adding a piece of equipment is equally simple. If we were to add another dosing pump, you would simply tap that plus button at the top. You can see in here all of the equipment that's currently in the office that's either assigned to other systems or that is available. Obviously, there's a lot of it. Everything that's within range within this building, and then everything that's within range of that is getting picked up and transferred here. If we wanted to identify one of these pieces of equipment that was not currently calibrated, we would simply press and hold, and then we're given the option to identify it. When we click on identify, then the driver for that particular device is going to flash, and then you know that's the one you want to add. To add it, you simply make sure you have a purple check mark there. You can add it or remove it simply by tapping on that, and then you would click next, and it will add it to your tank profile. One of the other features, which is related to this, is security. Now, obviously, because this is Bluetooth, as you saw, there is the ability to see every piece of equipment, whether it's in your profile or it's not in your profile. But that would potentially allow someone else to come and connect to it. Now, you can prevent that from happening simply by setting a passcode for your tank. Now, what that will mean is that nobody can take that piece of equipment and add it to their profile without knowing what your passcode is. So to do that, you go to Settings, and there is the ability to set your passcode. Your passcode by default is 000, which is the same for everybody, 4 zeros. But once you've set it to something unique for your tank, then somebody will have to have that passcode to be able to change your settings. While we are back here in the settings, you'll also see that there's the ability to name your system. You can have multiple tanks. When you open the app and you're at the dashboard on the home screen, you have the ability to switch tanks simply by tapping on your tank name, and then any tanks which you have will show up there. So you can have an unlimited number of tanks, and you can have many devices attached to each. I believe in the case of dosing pumps, I think it's in the region of 200 plus that you can actually have added at once. Now, last but not least, and perhaps the coolest feature or functionality in Mobius is scenes, and then later that will be augmented with programs or routines. Now, scenes are these icons which you see when you open up the dashboard. So this was the first thing we saw, and now it's the last thing we're going to touch on. Scenes are different user-activated functions that you can create for your tank. Now, there are some default in Mobius, but by clicking on Edit, you can potentially add others if you want to. You can also drill into each of these and change the settings. Go into Edit, and we go into Photo Mode. We can see there's the name. There's the icon as appears. We can set the duration of this, and then here's all the equipment on my tank, and I can specify what that equipment does and for how long for each thing. When you're done, you simply exit out of it, and then the scene will appear here on your dashboard. So if you wanted to have a movie mode, or you want to have photo mode, or you want to create a feed mode where everything is working together, that is something you can do and create right here. Down the road, when there's input devices, those input devices will allow you to trigger these same sorts of programs, but have it all happen autonomously. So that's not in Mobius right now, but that is something that Mobius has been designed for, and the intention is that we will have that in the not too distant future. In the meantime, you have all of this equipment control, and then you have scenes where you can tie it all together into user interactive buttons. All of the equipment is smart, so once you program it, that's it. It's going to run the program until you log in again, change the program, and save it. Okay, that concludes our tour. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you learned something. I hope you, whoops, cut myself off there.
So a couple things that Jay pointed out in the video that I thought were important to the audience here is that we've designed Mobius to be ideally suited for not just the home aquarist, but also for retail stores and commercial spaces. So if you're aquaculture, or growing coral and managing a lot of different systems. So we've improved the security so that we're going to be able to have independently controlled zones and groups of devices. Also, some of the technology that we're putting into this, such as scenes, can be very useful for a store. As an example, if you wanted to put a particular tank or group of tanks into a mode where you're shooting top-down photography and you have very specific lighting settings that you reproduce that photos under for particular corals, that's just a push of a button, and all of your systems, for example, lower down your vectras to a predetermined speed so that they're barely pumping water into the tank, and it drops your vortex down to no flow or off so that you can eliminate all of those ripples along the surface. And it really just creates an integrated environment for you to be able to do that. Also, limiting access for multiple users or having the ability to lock out the devices from being overtaken by other people who you would not want to have access for.
One of the other things is we've obviously tested this system in a number of retailers, either local to us and then also at some larger facility retailers that you may have heard of. One of the major benefits is that you're no longer reliant on Wi-Fi, which in commercial spaces is obviously a problem, and also the lack of having to run anything but power cables is proving to be a benefit for some of the retailers we've worked with, so that was pretty neat as well. I did a lot of talking in the video. Do you want to?
So as you guys may have noticed, the Versa is the first product that we're controlling on Mobius. And we do have our EcoTech experts in the beta program testing Mobius for the whole suite of our current products. We decided that we weren't going to just unleash this carte blanche against all the users around the world for our product line, even though we would love to, because we want to make sure that as we roll these products out, we're going to roll them out in a very well-polished, as free of bugs as we can make them, and make it a great user experience for people. Like Jay was mentioning before, we've worked very hard to make this backwards compatible for all of our existing, well, not all of our existing product lines. And I think you have a slide on that later.
Yeah, I mean, we have some new products in the works, which are going to be Mobius exclusive. We promise they'll be sexy. And then, of course, there's also the legacy products.
Right, so depending on which version of product that you have, it is potentially upgradable to Mobius. And we've made it as easy as possible to be able to determine whether or not your product is going to be updatable by essentially going on to EcoSmart Live, and you look at the settings of your device in ESL, it will tell you. And what determines whether or not it's upgradable would be the version of the product and the module that is in the system. Since February 2017, we've been shipping with the black RF module. That is the Mobius capable module with Bluetooth built into it. And prior to that, it was just the RF module, which was the original, well, not the original, but the second RF communication platform that we came out with. And there is a simple swap. You'd be able to buy the new module and just swap it out with the old and make those devices Mobius compatible. There's one caveat. There were a few Radions in Gen 3 that had the RF modules soldered to the circuit board, and those you cannot upgrade. But eventually, we updated them to the push-to-connect fittings there.
And then, obviously, we have two equipment brands. We have our EcoTech, and we have our Aqua Illumination brand, which is what comes with Waterbox primarily as well. And the latest generation of Aqua Illumination products is already Mobius compatible. I think you probably saw some of the icons when we were running, when we were going through the tour of Mobius, showing the lights and the Nero pumps. So both of those, including the Nero and Neros to come, are all going to be part of the system, and all of that is going to roll out in very short order. As Pat said, a lot of it just comes down to we're doing it gradually so that we can make sure that everybody's experience with this is as seamless as possible. One of once you're upgraded, once they're running the current version of firmware, everything runs very smoothly, very quickly. There is a little bit of time in terms of the firmware upgrades the first time you do that, and we just want to make sure that we can support all of that as that happens. But then after that, no promises, but we have a lot of things in the works in terms of integrating all of this to get the full effect of the simplicity and the ease of the control platform. Any questions? Uh-oh.
All right,
We
got
know
one
that
right here.
guy.
There we go.
So you guys talked a lot about the local access and Bluetooth, and I know a lot of folks really love tapping into their products remotely. Is there a remote access ability through Mobius down the line?
Yes, absolutely. So depending on the device, certain devices are going to have both Bluetooth, RF, and all Bluetooth, RF, and Wi-Fi built into the device, and select devices will be that way. And if you have a Wi-Fi enabled chip, that will enable remote access from anywhere. So you'll connect it into your router just like you would a Reef link or another product in your house, and you'll be able to use your Mobius app from wherever you are. But you'll also be able to seamlessly switch back and forth between local and remote access. And we're hoping to have that enabled sometime summer of 2020.
Next question. All right, coming up.
You guys have a team of Mobius hackers working? Is that Tim and Justin in the background doing that?
Well,
yeah,
actually, I
Tim
think
and
we have-
Justin, they don't touch code.
I think we have more software engineers almost than any type of engineer at
I
this
mean,
point.
you know, God bless the engineers. Nothing ever goes as quickly as you'd want. You know, we thought we were going to be delivering Mobius 2 years ago, but what we ended up having to do was rewrite the firmware for every device that we ever created. So, you know, that took some time. But what we've enabled ourselves to have is a system that has, there would be like an attribute table. So these things are stored with these procedures inside of the device, which makes them smart, right? And so it's kind of like a if this, then that inside of the chip, right? And so what you're seeing as a simplistic interface for the app is going to send out, when we have automations, a complex series of basically items which are invoked when they hear a signal. And because it's a mesh network, one device sends out, you know, signal 34, and then that signal is propagated through all the devices. And if one is listening for signal 34, it's going to do this, right? And so it's that automation of the process that's going to make a more stable system because it's decentralized. You know, if one of your products falls off the network because the power supply went bad, it doesn't kill the entire system. It just adapts around it.
It's actually kind of neat because you can log in from multiple smart devices. So what we were talking about before is once you've created a tank profile, all of that equipment is attached to that tank. But if you connect to it with those account credentials, you can do it and make changes from any smart device. And if for some reason you lose that, you can reconnect to your device, you can reconnect to the system, and it pulls all of your programming back into the app. Because it's only relevant while you're connected and making changes, because all of that programming lives in the system.
So can I throw my Reef link away tomorrow and get this hooked up on Monday after the
We
Super Bowl?
prefer that you burn them.
I'm an extreme novice here when it comes to this, but I hear the guys talking about things all the time. What about if we have a high-end customer that wants to have control of his lights, but we don't want him to touch anything else on the tank?
You can lock them out.
Well, if you want them to just have control of the lights and the other products, you could have them on two separate accounts.
Or two separate, yeah, or two tanks, I think you might
Yeah,
be able to do
I
that.
mean,
with different
the
passcodes,
idea,
so.
we really want to design a couple things into Mobius, which are obviously retailers, but aquarium service professionals, right? Somebody who wants to give a client access and wants them to be able to have control over, for example, you know, a demo or a scene, but not give them access to reprogram the devices. So that's actually a really good suggestion, Jolene. I think that, you know, having a user level, we've built the architecture in to have the owner account and sub accounts into one aquarium, but maybe limit some of the controllability. Yeah. Another thing that you could do would be to enable an Alexa skill or another type of home automation skill, so that you could they could tell the tank to do something.
Anyone else?
Awesome. So you were saying that these systems would integrate like the AI and like the Nero 5. So also with the freshwater systems be all integrating. So if we have a store and we want to set our mood lighting for picture taking, because right now I have too many tanks, too many lights, and it drives me absolutely crazy. Would the freshwater systems be able to be on subcategories with the saltwater systems?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I wanna
Well,
get so much.
each setup would be, you just set up groups of tanks, and then each tank is separately controllable, so your freshwater systems would be separate from your saltwater systems.
you know, we specifically built Mobius as something, it's an independent brand of its own. And so in the immediate future, we're going to see both the EcoTech Marine brand and the AI brand on the platform. But we've structured it as such, and we're talking to a number of other manufacturers that want to join us on the platform. So we see this as, us trying to think big and create a user interface and an all-in-one experience for an aquarist, where they're going to be able to use, a high-end aquarium equipment all in one place.
Anyone else? Anyone, anything? You guys have access, take advantage of it. All right, big round of applause then, EcoTech. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Super informative. I wish you had set up your video so you talked to yourself and did one of those cool back and forth with yourselves on the screen. But yeah, again, guys, EcoTech.com. I mean, if you don't know who they are or what their products are, you've lived under a rock. And industry standard, Mobius is going to be a game changer. Especially that was going to be my question, but you guys addressed it. I was going to ask you if you were going to open your API, because to me this is the next level, having smart devices with a controller instead of a controller to control dumb devices. So that's really awesome to hear. So awesome. All right, again, guys, we got a little break here. Grab a drink, get a snack. You got a little longer. These guys were super efficient with their time, so you got a little longer here. Again, raffle tickets, art, conservation, all that good stuff. Make your way around. Be back here for 3 o'clock for our next speaker, who's going to be Frank Young, talking about where you're getting your fish from.